What is up, everyone? Welcome to Optimus Fantasy Football. It is Monday, April 28th, 2025. Kevin, it is the first Monday past the NFL draft. This was a wild one. The biggest story out of this, obviously, being Shedeur Sanders not going until the fifth round to the Cleveland Browns, who had already selected Dylan Gabriel in the third. It's a lot of really interesting situations in this draft. What were your big, broadest takeaways from this draft?
If I don't ever hear Shedeur Sanders' name again, I will be just the happiest man on earth. Like, I'm sick of hearing him. And yeah, it sucks to have Jeff Ulbricht's kid prank call him to kind of rob that moment away from him. But I'm just sick of the Sanders family, and those probably the same way that we were all sick of the Ball family about a decade ago. I don't know about you, but I'm glad to never hear LeVar Ball's name again, and to hear Lonzo or LaMelo only in like a basketball context. So, we got a decade left of hearing about the Sanders family, it seems. So, but as far as like actual draft stuff, like, we all get in the weeds. We want to draft. We want to grade everybody immediately, and you just can't do that. You gotta let the draft marinate. You gotta wait a couple years. I mean, I think we could let's grade the 2022 draft while we're here. I mean, I don't know what you're doing, but like that's where we're at. But we have some overarching takes about landing spots now that players have teams. So that's where I love talking about this stuff. Like, I don't watch college football, but some of the cursory stuff, and then now knowing in a team context where these guys fit in, like I'm excited to talk about that.
Well, and I think something that we talked about on our two shows, day one and day two of the draft, and I talked about again with Bob Harris on Sirius XM on Friday night, is that a lot of these things that happened in the draft, we're not going to know if the player was worth the draft capital for a year to 2 years. We have no idea right now. We have a thought behind it. We can make educated guesses as to what's going to happen with these players. And I don't think that a lot of people in our position in the fantasy community pay enough attention to what some of these teams do, specifically like on the offensive line, or how some of these defensive moves even you get a better defense, your offense is going to have the ball more. They're going to be on the field. That's more opportunity for fantasy points. People haven't been looking at that stuff as much. We kind of get into that stuff as we talk about this. We're definitely going to, with these NFL draft, post-draft winners and losers here. We're going to start with winners, Kevin. I'm going to start with my first winner. And to my point previously about offensive line moves mattering, the Chicago Bears are my first winner here. They got a tackle, Ozzie Trapelo, out of Boston College. He was a 56th pick. That was something that they needed. They needed to shore up the offensive line with an early pick. It's going to help Caleb Williams develop. It's going to give him time in the pocket. And then he can get the ball to guys like Rome Odunze and Luther Burden. Imagine that, right? So I think the Bears were a big winner here. I like what they did. Colson Loveland's an interesting pick. But like we had talked about with that pick, I think part of it's Ben Johnson likes his style of play over Cole Kmet. Yeah, they do a lot of things similarly, but Loveland does them better. And something interesting with that pick here, and then I want to hear what you think about the Bears draft, Kevin. We heard after the first round that a bunch of teams over the last week had really heated up on Colston Loveland and were attempting to move up ahead of that 10th pick to possibly get Loveland ahead of the Bears. So I think this is a really good draft for Chicago. Kevin, what do you think?
I mean, we hear it all the time with like Green Bay in particular, as a Green Bay fan, that we're in the conversation for X player, Y player, especially in like free agency. We've heard ad nauseum about the Rams wanting the chance to trade up to take Brock Bowers last season. Obviously, that didn't come to fruition. Imagine that offensive Brock Bowers. Be kind of sick, boy. Everything the Bears did started with trading for Joe Thuney, trading for Jonah Jackson, adding Drew Dahlman, and then they've added some of the Ben Johnson pieces that would fit, maybe a little more on the offense than, obviously Keenan Allen wasn't being brought back, so they added Luther Burden. They also added Olamide Zaccheaus, but he's more of a depth piece. So you got to figure DJ Moore, Rome Odunze on the outside. they could play more, 12 personnel with Colson Loveland and Cole Kmet with the Dunze, and then Burden would be the guy that comes out on 2 wide receiver sets. So, that's going to be very fun for, because the Lions do play a lot of 12 personnel. They do play a lot of personnel just in general with switching guys in and out. So that's going to be very exciting for the Bears. That's going to be one of the more fun offenses in the NFL. So clearly with Caleb Johnson, you got to figure there's going to be hopefully some stability there with Ben Johnson, with Declan Doyle, the offensive coordinator, coming over from Denver. I would say they're definitely one of the big winners here. And, a lot of the, markets have gone up as far as money going onto the Bears for like season long props.
Yeah, I think for Caleb Williams, QB 16 last year, I think he can be a QB 1.
Yeah, he can be
easy.
He's got to run. I don't know about easy. You're talking about Josh Allen. You're talking about Lamar Jackson. Caleb Williams has got to run a little more of that offense. I don't know if you're going to get the efficiency in year 2. I think Caleb Williams could be a QB1, like can be a not overall QB1, but like a QB1. Like
that's what I'm saying.
Okay. I thought you meant like overall.
Yeah, I speak in tiers, Kevin. No. There's no way Caleb Williams is a fantasy QB1 overall, but a QB1 tier? Yeah, I think he can be a QB1 tier. I think he can be a top 12 guy this year, and I don't think that's really that crazy. You're just talking about him moving up basically 4 slots to where his birthright is as a QB1. It's his birthright.
Yeah, he's QB10 right now on like the BBM 6.
That makes sense to me.
Right. He's between Murray and Goff. So I think that's like a good spot for him where you can still capture upside if he can get into like between like QB5 and QB8. Like you're still getting a good ROI on that too. So I do like that. I think the Bears trajectory is certainly going up. We thought it was going up last year, but we forgot that Shane Waldron existed in 2024, and we know how that worked out. So
it didn't work out great. Anybody in Seattle probably could have told you how that was going to work out, wasn't it? Was it DK Metcalf or or Tyler Lockett or somebody who? It was JSN.
It was JSN. Went on a podcast talking about Shane Waldron. Yeah.
Yes, it was JSN. Eventually you're going to get to the Seahawks receiver who did it. I'm not crazy high on Luther Burden. But like, I think he's a guy, if you're getting him in the 3rd round of rookie drafts, late 3rd round, I'm okay with that. He's a guy I'll take a stab on in this offense.
You can get him. I don't know if you're going to get him in the 3rd, honestly. I think he's going to get name value. He's got name value amongst those wide receivers, and going into a fun offense, I think he gets steamed up. I think he's like a mid-second to late second at best, or at worst. But yeah, he's one of the best contingent wide receivers in terms of, there's a lot of market share for DJ Moore, for Rome Odunze in year 2. If something were to happen to either of those guys, Burden is going to be the one that jumps in, probably gets managed a little more. Like say somebody gets hurt in like week 3. If it's early on, Burden probably gets managed with like guys that like Zacchaeus or Tyler Scott that's been there for a little bit that can play in the slot. But if it happens later on while he's gotten his feet wet, it's kind of wheels up for that offense.
Yeah, I completely agree. I'm still probably not going to spend a 2nd rounder on him, but we'll see. Maybe if I have multiples, I might swing for the fences with him here. Kevin, who's your biggest winner here from this NFL draft?
For like fantasy purposes, it's got to be the Raiders for me, because Ashton Genty right now is going off. BBM 6 is like 106, 107. He's already come up from the 1-2 turn. That's basically where he's lived through the big board contests and stuff like that. And then not only that, but you added Jack Besh as well, a team that needed a wide receiver very badly. And I think Besh is going to be a sneaky winner as far as a guy where we're not writing any obituaries for Jacoby Myers for sure. But Besh is at least, I would say, leaps and bounds over the guys that they had. When you're talking about, you're looking at Alex Bachman, Tyreek McAllister, Shedrick Jackson, Christian, like it's not great. Trey Tucker is not a target earning wide receiver by any means. It is the Brock Bowers and Myers show. And if Betch can work his way into that rotation, I think it's fine. I mean, he reminds me of Jordy Nelson, maybe a little more size.
Sure.
So and it's not just because he's white. I promise. We are not shaming here for the inherent whiteness of a wide receiver. But yeah, Besh is a lot of fun. He could be a Jordy Nelson-ish target earning. I think he could be an 80-90 target guy for the Raiders, knowing how it's very top heavy with Bowers and Myers. And I still think that with all the guys there that are just almost Jags, that he could be a third target in that offense. And then Genty is almost 270 carries minimum, I would say, as long as he's healthy. And that's going to be flirting with wide receiver or running back 1 through 3, and then he's like a top 5 pick next season.
Is Raheem Mostert dead in fantasy now? Pretty much. I mean, other than being handcuffed to Jonty.
See, I don't know if he's dead or not because they still use multiple backs. I think that he could be. I mean, I think he's going to have more value early in the season.
Sure.
So you could get by where he's going to get 7 to 9 carries. I think they do what the Colts wanted to do with Jonathan Taylor before Marlon Mack got hurt. I think he tore his Achilles very early on. It was like week 1, week 2. And then they just had to go with Taylor and just run him out. Think about it like it's what they did with, I believe it was Adrian Peterson and Chester Taylor, where Taylor started out that season in Minnesota as Peterson got his run, but eventually it took like a few weeks. It took like a month before it was just wheels up for Adrian Peterson. That's probably what's gonna happen. I don't think Genty is coming out week 1 with 25 carries. I don't think that's what they want to do, just to get him right on the runway.
Yeah, I mean, unlikely he gets that much work right out of the gate. But I mean, I think by mid-season, he's the guy who's getting 25 carries. I do want to also bring up some other things I like that they did. Caleb Rogers and Charles Grant, both third-round offensive tackles. They needed that help on the line. And Gino's good under pressure. Imagine how much better he can be when he has a clean pocket. And then I think I figured out the real reason you love the Raiders more than any other team. It's likely... North Dakota State quarterback Cam Miller going to the Raiders.
He's good, man. He's legitimately good. And by the way, I don't know if you know this, Tommy Mellott, who is a wide receiver, it was Cam Miller versus Tommy Mellott at Montana State. That was the quarterback matchup in the FCS National Championship game. Mellott is a converted quarterback who is now a wide receiver. And Miller beat Mellott. So, there's going to be talking back and forth.
Oh, yeah, no, because he went at 213. So he went 2 slots ahead of Miller. So there should be some good job in there. But yeah, overall, I like what the Raiders did, Kevin. And I think similar to the Browns or similar to the Bears for me. No, I did like what the Browns did at first. I like the Dylan Gabriel pick. I like that they went defense heavy at the front. It signaled that they're probably sticking with the guys they had at quarterback until they went with Dylan. They got Quinshon Judkins, who I think is a stud. But then it got weird, right? Because Shedeur Sanders and Dylan Sampson are now in that backfield, in that room. What do you make of this? Was this a good draft for the Browns? I mean, at least the front part of it, does that make up for the weirdness at the back? Or are you looking at this like this is just more Cleveland crap?
I don't look at it as more Cleveland crap. I look at it as they're a team that needs an identity more than anything right now, and just adding decent, they've got, Dylan Sampson and Judkins in that offense. Judkins right now, I would say, is probably going to be splitting almost 50-50 at the very beginning of the season with Jerome Ford. And then, we're looking at probably the same thing as Genty is in terms of a workload, where I don't know if it's going to be like totally 70% of the rushing attempts for Judkins, like from week 4 on, but probably close. And then having some of the receiving upside. I think Ford still stays minorly relevant, but and Samson, who knows? Samson could just absolutely dust Ford too. So they
Yep.
could have a couple, we were what's that, fourth round draft capital? Like that's not bad capital for a second running back. So it is totally possible that Jerome Ford could be dust here. The quarterbacks, God, we don't know anything about them. So like you're talking Shador, Dylan Gabriel, Kenny Pickett, and Joe Flacco. Just mix them all up and pick one out of a hat. One of my favorite, and this I was talking to you about this before the show. Harold Fannin only blocked 7 times last season on a pass play at Bowling Green. I think because the Cleveland Browns did not draft a wide receiver at all, that I think right now their slot receiver going into the season is Jamari Thrash. I don't see Jamari Thrash being a worthwhile. I mean, they've got David Bell, DeAndre Carter, who's a special teams guy. I don't see any of those guys getting anywhere close to the snaps. That even like I think Harold Fannin could be their long-term option as a slot receiver for the Browns. I think they're going to be playing a lot more 12 personnel. David Njoku's slot percentage the last 3 seasons has come down a bit. His inline rate has also come up. So I think inline, I think he's going to be that kind of tight end for, going forward. And Njoku's almost 30 years old. Yep. Harold Fannin can be the move tight end where he can go in the slot like an Evan Engram. And I think that could be the offensive wrinkle that they drafted Fannin for in the 3rd round. You look at that and say, oh, it's a tight end too, but I don't think it's quite the tight end too, that people like, you see on the surface. I think there's going to be a lot more playing time for a guy like Harold Fannin to add another dimension to this offense. That's, it's not like the Jordan Akins or anything like that they've had in the past. So Harold Fannin is actually, I think, is going to be a big winner that people are not going to be talking about as much. When you look deeper into how he was used at Bowling Green, what David Njoku's usage has been as far as alignments the last few seasons, now that he's getting a little bit older, I think it's only going to help a guy like Joe Flacco, where he's been very good at targeting the tight end, when he's come in. I love Fannin. I'm going to be drafting him. He's going to slip into the 3rd round of rookie drafts. I'm happy drafting him at the end of the 2nd, even sometimes in the middle of the 2nd, just to make sure that I get a player like that. Because that's what we want in fantasy. We don't want the guys blocking. We want the guys that are going to be receiving. We want the Jimmy Grahams. We want the Antonio Gates, the Mark Andrews, the guys that don't block, that are always out there, as a receiver, that you don't have to worry about, that are going to be in blocking for another tight end to go out or another slot receiver. So like sign me up for all the Harold Fannin I can get.
I'm so glad that you didn't tip this before the show, Kevin. Because when I started talking about the Browns, I wanted to get all the other stuff out of the way. But the real reason I started this conversation was to talk about Harold Fannin. He's one of my favorite players in this draft class. And here's why. Because exactly what you're saying, people are sleeping on this kid. Primarily a slot guy at Bowling Green. Watching him in Mobile at the Senior Bowl, getting to see him in person. He's not very big, man. He doesn't play all that large. He plays like a perfect slot tight end. He really does.
He's a big wide receiver.
Yes.
6'4", 230.
Yeah, but he's on the smaller side for a tight end.
Right.
And the thing with Fannin was, and you saw it in Mobile, is that he doesn't want to block because he's not very good at blocking. Nobody's going to ask him to block. He's a phenomenal receiver, and he's being slept on because he went to Bowling Green. If this dude goes to Michigan, Ohio State, Alabama, Florida State, this is someone who's probably in the conversation as a 1st-round pick. I really do believe that. I think the talent's there. I'm doing the same thing where I see him coming around in the early second round of rookie drafts. I'm grabbing him because I don't want to miss out. I don't want to, if there's someone else in my league who sees the same thing I see, well, they don't get him. I get him. Great call. Exactly. Yeah, I love Harold Fannin. My other favorite pick in this draft, I really love Trevion Henderson to the Patriots. Like a lot. I didn't love it at first, Kevin, but I've kind of like marinated on it, and we know the kind of offense that Vrabel runs. They wouldn't have drafted Trevion Henderson if they thought Ramondre Stevenson was the guy. We keep thinking Ramondre Stevenson is the guy. He hasn't been the guy. Trayvon Henderson, I think, I'm shocked he went as late as he did, first of all. Second of all, I think he's an impact player, a major impact player in fantasy year one in New England.
Yeah, like Ramondre's been good, not great the last couple seasons. And, we wanted to I mean, he didn't even have like the draft capital. We're talking about a 4th round guy. Henderson, second round capital is very meaningful for a guy.
It is.
With intent, to make him the guy. And Antonio Gibson really hasn't shown much. I mean, right now, I think it's literally Henderson, Stevenson, Gibson, and little used Terrell Jennings, and who's more of a special teams guy anyway. But with what they had, obviously adding a left tackle, Will Campbell's great. Do you want anything that can protect our future Lord and Savior Drake May? And then obviously Henderson to be able to hand the ball off to. And I think we're gonna get some, information coming up with rookie camp, and then obviously training camp when that opens up in July. We're going to get a lot more information, but I do think just adding some of those pieces, obviously the tackle is going to be huge. They added a couple more pieces on the offensive line as well. Stephon Diggs is targeted for about 130 or so targets. I'm just a bit questionable about Henderson's full season workload, because we know how much the Patriots love to manage. Yeah, that's exactly Lou.
Yeah, exactly what Lou's saying in the chat. Yep. Yeah. But that's true, and it's definitely a concern. I just feel like he's like the Corey Dillon talent. When they brought in a guy like that who could manage that load, a lot of times they don't bring in guys who can handle that level of a workload as a running back. I think maybe Trayvon Henderson can handle it. And I like the Kyle Williams pick, that round 3 pick, the wide receiver out of Washington State. I'd heard some grumblings that possibly Tennessee was going to try and move up to get him to pair with Cam Ward. Not a terrible addition in a wide receiver room. Like we were saying, it's filled with Jags and Stephon Diggs. So maybe the Patriots compete for the AFC East this year.
I don't know about that, but they're on
wild
the right
card slot. They're on the right path, at least. Yeah,
they could be
competing for the division.
They could be whole is better than the sum of their parts. But Mike Vrabel, if there's one thing that he does do, is defer to veterans. He has always been that type of head coach, so that's what leads me to believe like Kyle Williams feels like a very much a Josh Palmer-ish type,
sure.
Like in terms of team context. Because he was a guy that kind of fell through the cracks and then still got like day 2 capital. But he's also in the middle of Demario Douglas, Kendrick Bourne, to where you'll probably see a lot of those guys. You might not even see Kyle Williams active like in the first part of the season. But it all depends on, because Mac Hollins is like the perfect wide receiver in real life NFL. That dude blocks his ass off, and he's like fine at like contested catches. Diggs can be the target earner, like he's the perfect flanker. And Demario Douglas can work the slot. Like they have Mac as the X, Diggs is the slot, or Diggs is the flanker, Douglas is the slot. They have like the perfect like dichotomy, like those 3 guys for those positions on the field. And then it's just everybody else, like good luck, like getting 8 to 10 routes. So that's what leads me to believe like a guy like Kyle Williams can slip through the cracks, maybe not even be active for the beginning part. That leads me to believe Jalen Polk might be like a trading camp cut, like at this rate.
He very well could be.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, even like Javon Baker was used a little more on special teams. So, but I don't even think he's safe either. Like, I think they need to cut a lot of. I'm surprised they didn't add more like another wide receiver in the draft with higher capital. Maybe they were spooked a little by the Polk stuff, but yeah, I think that wide receiver room's got to shake out a little more. But yeah, I mean, it's still an offense in progress. The defense is solid. They added obviously Robert Spillane to like some of the core pieces that they've got with Christian Gonzalez. it's going to be a sneaky team. I just don't know if they're competing for the division. I think maybe they're like 7 or 8 wins is like best case scenario. But what does that do
Yeah,
for a team that needs talent? That just means you're picking at like 16.
yeah, that's not a bad place to be. I could see him winning 10 games. Saying they could win the division, that was in jest. Like, there's obviously nobody's competing with the Bills right now. Yeah, and I know Lou wants to. You should clip it, Lou. Get me roasted. I
Yeah, I'm
haven't
sure
gotten any hate
that'll work
DMs in
out
a
great in
while.
October when they're 0-4.
Or if they win the division, hey, now that's never going to happen.
Wait,
You did
did
mention
he
a name
know?
though. Did he know? I know things, people. I want to talk about Josh Palmer's replacement and some other parts here with the Chargers draft. Trey Harris is going to be a Josh Palmer replacement behind McConkey and Johnston. I'm not super excited about where he landed. He was a guy I liked leading up to the draft. Do you think there's any hope that he sees more volume than what Josh Palmer saw? Or
I mean, like right now it's McConkey and then whatever you can get out of those guys. Like Harris
yeah,
has some size. Like I'm not convinced Mike Williams is coming back to the same role we had with the Chargers. Like the fact that he could barely get on the field on a Steelers team that was running out Scotty Miller and
mm-hmm.
Van Jefferson. Like, dude,
Oh,
no.
Mike Williams is a non-factor.
Well, right, but right now he's a starter, like on the outside, like as far as
Yeah, but he,
goes.
yeah,
I guess Quentin Johnson, I guess, but whatever. Like between those guys, like Quentin Johnson is fine, I guess. Trey Harris could find his way, but that's second round value or second round draft capital is pretty meaningful.
yeah.
My boy, Aronde Gadsden, I do like where he landed there because you got Disley, you've got Tyler Conklin, like those guys. I mean, I'm not saying those guys are Jags. I think Disley is like fine for like a pro NFL wide receiver, but they want to add size and some athleticism to their tight end group. Speaking of guys that don't block, Aronde Gadsden is basically another big wide receiver that should never have to block and can be like a matchup nightmare for a Chargers team that we know a little bit about matchup nightmares with Mr. Antonio Gates being there for the better part of a decade.
Yep.
But yeah, I do think that the Chargers with Justin Herbert, you've always got a chance. Marion Hampton, I think, should be a late third, mid third in best ball drafts. I do think he's got a great chance to just absolutely dust Najee Harris. And basically make Najee Harris, if he's going to do anything in fantasy, I think it's going to be the Jamal Williams role where he gets a few carries, but he gets a lot of like goal line work too that Hampton doesn't get and is efficient on that. That's where I think Harris could be good, but I do think Hampton, I think he's ticketed. If Genty is ticketed for minimum 270, Hampton is probably ticketed for about 230 to 240, and that's still worth a third round price on like redraft and best ball, as a guy that's going to get steamed up if we get some good news in training camp.
Well, I think we will. And plus, obviously, this was the next player I wanted to talk about here for the Chargers. But this is a run heavy offense. It's Jim Harbaugh. It's Greg Roman. We know what they're going to do. The same thing they did last year. This is going to be a primarily run forward offense. Najee Harris, I want to love the guy. I do. Loved him in Pittsburgh. I know you don't.
He's dust.
But he is. He's dust. He had his shot. He really lost a lot of work to Jaylen Warren last year. And we'll talk about that in a minute. Yeah, Najee's toast. He might get, like you said, that Jamal Williams role from that year in Detroit where he snipes a lot of the goal line work and maybe like first down work. So, I mean, if Scott Fish is giving positive points for first downs, Najee might be a guy you want to target a little higher in Scott Fishbowl, but like, yeah, Judkins is going to be the guy. And we see Najee probably get that work the first half of the season. I wouldn't be surprised to see it mostly move to Hampton in the second half of the season. I know I just said Judkins, but didn't mean it. Third round for Hampton, I'm sold on that value.
For redraft, you like that?
For redraft, yeah, no, I love that. In Dynasty, I mean, he's probably approaching a first round pick right now in Dynasty drafts.
Hampton, he's like 102 He's no lower than 104 or 5 for me.
He just went. I can pull.
I mean,
it up.
you're talking Genty, Ward. I mean, 103 is like, I mean, depending on it, Hunter or Hampton.
Hampton went 102.
Yeah.
In this,
I don't think he should go any lower than 104.
Yeah. Well, he's coming off the board appropriately. So yeah, I'll pay that. I'm happy for. I know, run heavy offense, a stud rookie running back. What's not to love, right? You get 4 years of production out of these guys. You're going to get a ton out of them the first year. Now, Pittsburgh, they got Najee's replacement. They got Caleb Johnson out of Iowa. Not a whole lot of uniform change for the guy. He's going to feel pretty at home in those black and golds. I'm not a big Iowa fan, but that's just me. I like Caleb Johnson, though. Do you think this is a good fit, though, Kevin? I see you kind of shaking your head a little bit.
I'm shaking my head just because I sent out a post on Blue Sky about Jaylen Warren surviving the first round and how, the Pittsburgh Steelers don't have a second round pick. So I think we're good, with the Steelers having other needs. And then they go and take like the most Steelers ass back in Caleb Johnson. So don't care for that too much as a Jaylen Warren bull, but I think they're both gonna have a role. And you're talking about but Caleb Johnson has the ability where he could just come in. I mean, he's not going to relegate Jaylen Warren to the bench by any means, but it's going to suck for the top end, upside for a guy like Jaylen Warren. So that's a guy that's going to be falling in drafts where what Jaylen Warren could do. You know how efficient he is, where you can grab him in like a couple rounds later. Like he's going to be he's back to the 0 RB tier, and I'm here for it. But like Caleb Johnson, I have not seen where he is going. I'm going to take a look real quick.
Well, Jaylen Warren's going RB 29.
Caleb Johnson's going as RB 26 right now.
Yep. 3 slots ahead of Warren.
Which is that I think that seems rich. It's a little bit to me, going over Aaron Jones, going over Tony Pollard. I know it's an ambiguous backfield because we don't know how everything's going to shake out, and that's fine. That might be like the what Pittsburgh running back you draft, what does that say about you? So that's going to be one of the big tests where, defines your personality type between Caleb Johnson, who is a much more they're both bruising runners in their own way, certainly. But yeah, that's going to be a fun backfield. Arthur Smith is all up in his feels about that. So that the one thing that's good about that is you can get Jaylen Warren at a discount, because I do think he's wholly underrated as a running back of the NFL. And now obviously they added a running back with 3rd round capital, which does stink, but both guys are going to be used.
Yeah, I'm buying the dip on Jaylen Warren. It's a Mike Tomlin offense. They're both going to see plenty of work. Jaylen Warren's an adept pass catcher too, so there's always that part of it.
Yeah,
I'm not scared of either one of them. I'm more scared of the ADP for Caleb Johnson. Honestly, like you're saying, it's too rich. It's too high.
I think it's a little rich, and I think everybody has the rookie fever and wanting to steam up some of the rookies to get access to them early on in the drafts. But I do think that eventually those prices kind of deflate a little bit. I think the prices deflate for both guys, honestly. I think they're going to both come down to where it's 26 and 20, RB 26 and RB 29 for Johnson and Warren. You'll probably see them both in the 30s, in the next month or so.
Yeah, you have to assume it's going to correct. We've got Lou here in the chat. What your favorite rookie RB says about you? Optimus Listicle coming soon. Yeah, we'll get that up on the site here. One last thing, Kevin, before we get out of here. Tyler Shuck to the New Orleans Saints. Do you think if Derek Carr can't play, is there a battle here between Rattler and Shuck, or is Shuck just the starter?
I mean, Shuck has the veteran leadership aspect, being about as old as you and me. So,
he's old enough to be Spencer Rattler's dad.
He already has his NFL pension, which is impossible as a rookie, but somehow Shuck did it. Sorry, Lou. I mean, what? Look, tell me what I'm telling Wise. But no, as far as the states, like Spencer Rattler showed nothing. Jake Hayner showed nothing. The other quarterback on their bench, Bench DiNucci, has shown nothing. And I think even in the XFL has shown nothing. So it's probably Tyler Shuck, especially if you draft him in the second round. Like we all thought that Shedeur Sanders was earmarked for the first round when we got the Derek Carr news. So to still get a guy like that in the second, the arm is you just got to worry about if he can hold up. He's had so many injuries. There's a reason why he spent 13 years in college and now has his doctorate. So, but the offense in total, like the offense isn't like super great. Like you've got, the bones of Alvin Kamara of what he once was. And then Chris Olave coming off concussion, 97-year-old Brandon Cooks, Rashid Shaheed coming off an injury. Like there's a lot of variables with this offense, and I think it either could be fine to where it's like mildly productive, or it could just crater out again because Brandon Cooks is just completely fallen off, because Olave is, maybe more. I mean, if anybody knows about concussions, it's Brandon Cooks from his time in the Rams, where he had like 3 in 9 months. So I guess maybe that's why they brought him in, to give him some coaching on that. But yeah, I think this offense is still has a lot to go, a lot to figure out. So,
oh yeah, I'm not high on Chris Olave at all. I really don't want any of these parts in fantasy. I was hoping they did get Devin Neal in the 6th round. I love Devin Neal. Nice kid. I wish he'd gotten higher draft capital. You think there's any chance a 6th round running back here sneaked into some production? Because I can't see it in New Orleans.
I mean, you never know. That's the thing. Alvin Kamara is, fine. He's as long as he's managed, he's fine. Kendrick Miller got a bad rap because he was public enemy number 1 under Dennis Allen. But even then, they've got like Jordan Mims was a pretty solid receiving back.
Mm-hmm.
CEH is still like clinically alive, I guess.
Technically.
So like, you never know. It's almost like, I don't want to say it's San Francisco like, because I feel that's like kind of a cop out, but they're a team that always kind of has found running backs, to just randomly produce. So like, I'm not like Devin Neal's a 4th round rookie guy. Devin Neal is like literally the last round dart throw in best ball. Like, but that's fine, because that's usually where it's a good system. It's somewhat ambiguous outside of Kamara. So totally fine with that.
Is Shuck worth a stab as like a QB3
in best ball?
Yeah.
Sure. Well, he would literally have to be a last round pick, but I don't know. I don't know if I could do that, because I don't know how many games. I don't think he's starting 17 games. So that's tough, man. I don't know if I could do that, honestly, because what do you get if you win? You get 17 touchdowns, 11 interceptions, and 2,900 yards.
What if he has like 2 massive games? Then is he worth it at the back end as the last pick?
I mean, anybody's worth it. I mean, if everybody could suck until week 17, and then you get a spike week, and then Tyler Shuck, you're going out and buying a Tyler Shuck jersey with the $1 million he just won on BBM 6. But if anything, he'll be unique, I suppose.
Yeah. I was just surprised to see him go that early. And like, I thought maybe guys like Jalen Milroe would go ahead of him, which that Seattle situation with Milroe, I saw somebody say that this feels like Russell Wilson, Matt Flynn all over again with Darnold and Milroe. I see that face you're making. It's the same face I made when I saw it, because Milroe just isn't, he's not ready. He's not ready.
Milroe is
to be a starter.
No, he's a 100% developmental quarterback that, there's a reason they went out and brought Drew Lock back. Yep. He knows the system. He's a competent. He's a good hand to have outside. So Milroe's not going to be active on game day. Milroe is going to be the emergency third quarterback for most, if not all, of the season, as long as Locke and Darnold are still healthy.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And I love this comment here from Barely Fantasy. Evan, if you guys haven't found him, at barelyfantasy.bsky.social and at barelyfantasy on Twitter. New member of the team. None of the rookie QBs are NFL ready except for Cam Ward. Even then, I'm worried about Ward in that awful Tennessee offense, and I am too.
What, Tyler Lockett doesn't do anything for you?
No, not even a little bit.
Kidding. Obviously, he does not. No, that's Tennessee.
People are telling us with a straight face that Tyler Lockett means something this offense. So
he means something to the natural housing market. No, he doesn't mean anything to the Tennessee Titans offense. I'm sorry. Like, dusty ass Tyler Lockett with who's gonna probably get 0.67 yards per out run this season on the Robert Woods trajectory, where Tennessee Titans is where the wide receivers go to die.
Yep. Always has been, always will be. Yeah. Well, guys, on that note, I want to remind you, you've seen that little thing at the bottom of the screen, but I'm going to make it a little bit bigger here. Start drafting faster with the promo code Optimus on fastdraft.app. Check it out in your app store, whether that's on Google Play or on Apple. It's a really awesome way to draft, guys. 20 seconds per pick. You're in and out in like 5 minutes. You build these teams. You get to change the grades and stacks on players. It's a great time. It's an alternative, right? It's an alternative to all the best ball that we've all been doing. With that, guys, we're going to get out of here. I want to thank everyone for tuning in with Kevin and I today. Make sure you look us up on Blue Sky, on Facebook, on the web, optimusfantasy.com, and check out the show description and get in on our Discord channel. We're getting really strong there, guys. We just finished live posting the entire NFL draft. And by we, I do mean Lou. Just finished live posting it. He got us all the picks, and it was wonderful. It kept me informed on a Saturday where I had to go do flag football with the kid. So check out that Discord server, guys. For Kevin, I'm Nate. Have a great rest of your Monday, guys. We'll see you later this week.